Welcome to the third episode in a Legendarium series about the Roman Kingdom. In Part 3, Reign of the God King, we will talk about how Romulus ruled Rome. In the previous episode, we talked about how Romulus founded Rome after murdering his brother Remus and making himself king. After doing so, Romulus appointed a governing body of 100 men, the First Roman Senate. Rome's initial population came from fugitives, exiles, runaway slaves, criminals, and other cast-offs. Due to the largely male population, Rome needed brides, so the Roman men chose to abduct women from a neighboring city. They invited the Sabines and Latins to a festival of Kronos, and after their guests became inebriated, the Roman men carried off their women to Rome. In response to this mass abduction, the Sabine and Latin men understandably went to war against Rome. Romulus prevailed and celebrated with the first Roman triumph, a tumultuous parade held in the streets. It is striking that the Romans of the Augustan age, including the moralist Livy, made no secret of their descent from vagabonds who took wives through theft and trickery. Although defeated, King Titus Tardius of the Sabines attempted to assault Rome for a second time. The daughter of the citadel commander promised to open the gates of Rome for the Sabine army if they gave her whatever they bore on their left hand. When the Sabines passed through, the girl expected dozens of bracelets. Instead, they crushed her to death with the shields they carried on their left hands, a gift of death which the Romans would bestow on many traitors. Indeed, the name of this first traitor, Tarpeia, would be given to the Tarpeian Rock, a cliffside in the hills of Rome where traitors would be thrown to their death. The Sabines besieged the Romans until Romulus prayed to Jupiter, king of the gods, and Jupiter moved the Sabines to accept a truce in which the Roman and Sabine monarchs formed a joint reign of 2 kings. Romulus and Titus jointly ruled for 5 years, during which time both nations enjoyed peace and prosperity. After these 5 years, Romulus found Tardius sheltering some allies who robbed the neighboring Lavinians. The Roman Senate decided that Tardius must go to Lavinium to make peace by appeasing the locals and sacrificing to their gods. While in Lavinium, assassins murdered Tardius, and Romulus became the sole king once more until his death in 717 BC at the age of 53. Folklore gives Romulus a grander style than the hamlets on the Tiber could likely afford, including scarlet shoes and a floor-length white cloak with purple stripes. Romulus kept his men close and his enemies closer. After all, founding a state on the blood of one's twin brother does not give one's subjects or oneself much comfort. Nor would Romulus have found comfort when he looked beyond his palisade. On the Latium plain of west-central Italy, dozens of other small farming communities formed. At least 50 such villages similar to Rome dotted Latium. They constructed tunnels and dams to irrigate the earth and stabilize the thin layers of topsoil in the river valley. While they mainly grew barley and wheat, Italian farmers began to grow figs introduced by the Greeks and olives brought from the north by Etruscans. They had similar cultural and religious practices, but strong local loyalties and warlike chiefs meant frequent conflict. Most of this warfare consisted of cattle raids and tit-for-tat attacks involving fewer than 100 men. While warfare was endemic to Italy at this time, it tended to be low intensity and thus caused relatively few deaths. If Romulus did lead Romans into war, then he led small groups in hit-and-run raids aimed at stealing cattle, with myth and legend making these into epic campaigns. War chiefs like Romulus organized male members of the clan to raid or defend against plunder raids. Yet from time to time, this 8th century warfare intensified to the point where a local ruler might be overthrown. Rome likely overthrew the leaders of one such village, Canaina, during this era. The historian Dionysius described Canaina as a village on the Anio River, which flows into the Tiber less than a mile north of Rome. According to Dionysius, Romulus overthrew the village chief and forced Canaina to give up 1/3 of its farmland to Roman colonists. This marked Rome's first conquest. It also foreshadowed how Rome dealt with conquered peoples, not by annihilation, but accommodation. A warrior chieftain like Romulus not only extended his city's power with war, but it gave him a chance to show heroism on the battlefield. This in turn translated into power and influence in village councils. And the campaign season was usually only a month or two before the harvest, since all of the warriors were farmers and needed to be back in the fields. During Romulus's reign, he is also said to have defeated the village of Antemnae, located 3 miles away on the left bank of the Tiber. Both communities would later receive full Roman citizenship by being incorporated directly into the Roman polity. It is possible that the early Roman king's conquest of these villages became the basis for the myth about the abduction of the Sabine women and the overthrow of wicked King Numitor. Such early kings may have come to be remembered as Romulus. The life of Romulus, however it unfolded, has several endings depending on the source. In one myth, Romulus disappeared during a storm that came suddenly with loud thunderclaps and made complete darkness during a clear day. This could refer to a solar eclipse. When the light returned and the rain vanished, Romulus is said to have disappeared from the earth. 2 men beside him on his throne claimed that Romulus ascended into the sky, and the Romans hailed him as a new god named Quirinus, who would become part of the Capitoline Triad. Livy, on the other hand, writing a generation after the murder of Julius Caesar, believed that the leading families grew resentful of Romulus's autocratic leadership. Like Caesar, Livy wrote that the leading men struck down Romulus during a meeting of the early Senate, cutting him into pieces and each Senate father carrying out a body part under his clothes, and this explained Romulus's vanishing, in Livy's opinion. In keeping with the Roman passion for omens, an eclipse and sudden storm erupted, which were said to have also heralded Romulus's birth. Cicero would later combine the two versions, claiming that a leading man covered for the murder by declaring that the ghost of Romulus appeared before him. Cicero has this unnamed senator declare that Romulus, now deified as Quirinus, prophesied that Rome would become the capital of the world, that he himself had become a god. Of course, by Cicero's time, Rome had indeed become the capital of the world, and in a parallel to Cicero's time, some reported seeing a comet at the time of Caesar's funeral. The people took it as a sign of Caesar ascending to heaven, and this helped to make Caesar himself a Roman god, just as Romulus before him ascended into the pantheon. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.